أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So we are continuing with our lessons in this course, that is water governance and policy. Last week we introduced the topic, and today we shall be continuing further. In our lesson today, we shall be talking about the political economy of water. Now, these are going to be our lesson's objective today. So by the end of the lesson, you should be able to, number one, define and explain the concept of the political economy of water, identify and analyze the role of power in water distribution, examine different types of inequality in water access, explain the concept of water justice, analyze the political ecology of water, evaluate the role of economic systems in water management, compare the roles of the state, market, and communities in water governance, identify sources and types of water-related conflicts, explain mechanism for cooperation and conflict resolution. Then lastly, critically reflect on policy issues related to water access, equity, and sustainability. So in brief, this is what is going to basically guide us in our lesson today. So as we start, we always start with a question in our lessons. So today, we are starting with this question. If water is essential for life, why do some people have abundant access while others struggle daily? So this is a question that needs discussion. This is a question that needs answer. Because if we are saying today that water is daruri, water is essential, why is it that we have two groups of people? We have some people who get a lot of water daily, and on the other side, we have people who are not getting water. So why is it the case, basically? So that is the question. So answering this question, if we want to answer this question, that is, if water is essential for life, why is it that some people, yes, please, Nam, you have a question? Why are you raising your hand? So if water, you wanted to answer? You wanted to answer the question? Well, there was somebody raising the hand. Who was that? Samsung? Okay, I thought you wanted to answer this question. No problem. Okay. Now, if you want to answer this question, so our lesson today we will be answering this question. Like, why is it that some people they have access to water and some people they don't have access to water? So by the end of this lesson, we should have an answer to this question. So there are many reasons, as we shall see in this lesson. So sometimes the reason can be related to power. So when you're talking about power, there are some people they have, for example, in government, they are the ones who are ruling the country. So they can decide which region is going to have water and which region is not going to have water. Sometimes there is inequality can result to this thing. Sometimes it's also related to the policy decisions the government is making. So the policy the government is making can lead to inequality. Then the economic systems we are having in our country can also be a factor. So what we are basically saying, the key message is water distribution is not neutral, but it reflects there is a lot of power, there is a lot of politics and economics, as we shall see in our lesson today, that is related to water governance, water distribution, water accessibility. Now, number one in our lesson, as we start, is what is the political economy of water? What is the political economy of water? What is the definition? When you're talking about political economy of water, what does it mean? So the political economy of water studies how power, institutions, and economic interests shape the distribution, access, and control of water resources. So there are a lot of elements in this definition. So number one, they are telling us the political economy of water studies how power. So when you're talking of power, you're talking about political asset. So in this case, governments decides who gets it. So the government, they normally make the decisions. They're the ones who have the power. So they can decide to have good pipes in this area and the other area, no pipes. So when we're talking about accessibility of water, we are talking about the political power. Then number two, an economic good. So when you're talking about an economic good, this water, it can be priced, it can be traded, or subsidized. So water is an economic good. In many countries, if you go, you'll find that we have some institutions that manage the water, for example, in a country, in a city. So you find every month they give you a bill and you have to pay, for example, $20. It depends with your consumption. So if the prices of the water is high, not everybody is going to do what? Not everybody is going to be able to do what? To get the water. Only those people who have money will get the water. Then it is a social necessity. So this water is essential for life, health, and livelihoods. We cannot live without water. So because of these, decisions about water often reflect power relations and economic priorities, not just efficiency or need. Now, still answering the same question about what is the political economy of water. So there are key elements. There are key elements of political economy of water. So number one, power structures. In every country, you have the government. When we are talking about the government, we are talking about the three elements that makes a government. We have the presidency, which is the executive. Then we also have the legislature, which is now the parliament. Then we have the judiciary. So these three arms of the government, they have an influence in water decisions. We have corporations. So when you're talking about corporation, we are talking about the institutions that manage water in a country. Then the elites. When you're talking about the elites, we are talking about the private sector. In many countries, for example, especially in Somali, the government, maybe like in Somaliland, for example, you find that the government does not even manage the water. The private sector is the one that is managing the water and electricity. You know, then we also have the community. They also have an influence when it comes to water decision. Number two, institution. We have institutions that make the law, they make policy. We have the water authorities and customary systems. Then we have the economic interests. When you're talking about water, we have different sectors in the country, the agriculture, the industry, the urban, ila ghairi dhalik. So when you're talking about interest, we are talking about priorities. Which area needs water? Which area is top in the list? Then resource control. Who controls the water? The ownership, the management, and who regulates the water? Then access and distribution. Who gets water? So somebody decides who gets water, how much, and at what cost. So these are the elements of political economy of water. Now, so the political economy of water tries to answer this question. Number one, who controls water resources? So control may lie with governments, like we have just said, private sector or local communities. So sometimes you have, that is what I was telling you, state ownership versus private ownership. In some countries, the state, the government owns, manages the water. But in some countries, the private sector is the one that manages the water. Centralized versus decentralized management. So when you al-markazia or alla-markazia. So in some countries, you have, for example, in Kenya, you'll find that everything is being managed in Nairobi. But with the new constitution, everything was decentralized. We have 47 counties. So every county manages its water. It is not like before. Then the legal rights and customary rights as described in the constitution. So who controls the water sources? There are many people who are involved in the control, and there are a lot of approaches in the control of water. Number two, who benefits from water policies? Who benefits? Man yastafid min hadhihi siyasat. So policies often favor certain groups. For example, commercial farmers, cities, and industries. So sometimes the government will come with what is known as subsidies and investment. For example, if the government wants to encourage agriculture, wants to encourage the farmers to produce more, it is going to have the cost of water for the farmers going down. Because they want to do what? Because they want to increase the agricultural production. So when you're talking about subsidies, the government is reducing costs of water for some sectors so that at least they can produce more. Then infrastructure, the government sometimes can come with policies to build dams, the irrigation system. Then policy priorities, which one comes first? Is it economic growth or equity? We need to balance between the two. Are we just focusing with profits by increasing the cost of water, or we are focusing with equity? Equity means that at least everybody in Somali can get water. But if it is economic growth, you'll find that they're focusing with only the major cities. But the rural areas, they don't get water. Now, who is excluded or marginalized? So political economy also discusses this. So sometimes you find that some groups struggle to access clean and affordable water. It happens in all the countries, especially in Africa. So we normally have the rural vis-a-vis the urban inequalities. Most of the time you will find that water, clean, quality water is available in towns, but if you go to the rural areas, they don't have waters. Gender disparities. So women often bear water collection burden. For example, if you go to the traditional society in Somali, for example, if there is no water in the house, the women, they will have to go and bring the water. So for the men, they are doing business. So the women, they have to bear all the burden related to water collection. Then we have poverty and affordability. Some people, they have money, they can afford water. Some people, they don't have money, masakin, they cannot get water. Then informal settlements lacking services. When we are talking about informal settlements, we are talking about the slum areas, the areas where the poor people live, masakin. For example, if you go to every town, you will find there is one area. All the masakins, they live there, so they don't get enough water. Then number 4, how do economic systems shape water access? So when we are talking about the economic model, every country has its economic model. So we have some countries, they have the capitalist model. Some countries, they have the communist model. Some countries, they have the socialist model. Some countries, they have the Islamic system of economics. So the system the country embraces is going to determine who is going to get the water. So sometimes we have the market-based pricing. The market-based pricing is the capitalist system. They don't focus about the people. They just focus with increasing the cost of money. This month you're paying $20, the next month +1, +2. So the cost of water is increasing. And we also have the other side, we have the public provision. This is the communists. They are not thinking about profit. They are thinking about equity, supplying water to everybody. Privatization and public ownership. So sometimes if the private sector is the one that is going to manage the country, people will suffer a lot because the private sector, they are doing business. If you have money, you get water. You don't have money, we are going to disconnect. But we have the public ownership. If the government is the one that is managing the water, at least you'll find that all the areas will get some water. Then cost recovery policies. Then there are some policies also related to cost and the investment incentives. Now, في نهاية المطاف هناك المبادئ. There are some key principles of the political economy of water. So when you're talking of political economy of water, number one, equity, al-adala. So when you're talking about equity, does not mean al-adala, it means al-musawa. Then justice means al-adala. So these two words, students normally confuse between equity and justice. So equity means fair distribution of water across different groups. So equity means if in Mogadishu there are 5 million people, we need to supply water to those 5 million people. If you go to Garowe, there are 2 million people, you have to supply water based on the 2 million people. So it cannot be the same, Mogadishu and Garowe, because in Mogadishu many people are living in Mogadishu. So the supply, the supply in Mogadishu and Garowe cannot be the same. This is al-musawa, because here there are many people, they have to get a lot of water. If you go to the other side, they are few, so they have to get little water. But if you find in Mogadishu there are 10 million people, and in Mogadishu and in Garowe there are 2 million people, and the water supply is the same, there is no equity. Number two, efficiency, al-kafa'a. So optimal use of water resources with minimal waste. So we should not do al-israf when we are using water. This is what is meant by efficiency. Then sustainability, protecting water resources for future generation. We should ensure that we are doing our level best to ensure that we have water for today, and also our sons, their families, they will get water. Accountability. Decision makers must be responsible for their actions. Sometimes the parliament, the minister who is responsible for water, sometimes the president, they make decisions, and these decisions sometimes affects the supply of water. They need to be accountable for their decision. If the decision they make is not like fair, they need to be asked why. Transparency, open and clear decision-making process. Everything should be open, from the supply to the prices of water. How much should the citizens pay for the water? It should be an open thing. It should be gazetted. It should be announced in the media. Every time there is an increment, every time there is a decrement, it needs to be announced. Participation. If there is any decision related to water, all the people must be involved in the decision making. Nobody should be isolated. Then akhiran al-adala, addressing inequalities and protecting vulnerable groups. Al-adala basically means we need to ensure there is equality, and number two, we protect the vulnerable groups. The vulnerable groups are the women. We have to ensure that the women, they don't suffer. The vulnerable groups are the old people. We need to ensure that the old people, they have enough water. The disabled people, they are also vulnerable. We have to ensure that the disabled people, they get enough water. The children, the small children also. So those four groups are vulnerable. Now, في نهاية المطاف, they are telling us water allocation is not purely technical. That is engineering or hydrology. So water allocation is shaped by political decision. That is, who gets the priority. Number two, economic system. Who can afford water? Then lastly, power relations. who has influence when it comes to water supply. Therefore, solving water problems require not only technical solution. We can have good drainage system, we can have good pipes, but that is not enough. It also requires political and economic reforms. So these three things, the technical solution, the political and economic reforms, they work concurrently to ensure that each and every person has enough water. Okay, on to our next part. Power and water distribution. Are they related in any way? When you're talking about power, what do we mean? So power, as sultan, power in water governance refers to the ability of individuals or groups to do what? To influence decisions about water allocation, access, and control. So when you are talking about power, if you are having a sultan, it basically means you have the power to decide water allocation, the percentages, you have the power to decide agriculture sector is going to get this percentage, the industries, they are going to get this, the schools, so you have the power to allocate. Access, who is going to access water? You also have the power to decide that. Then lastly, controls, who manages the water? So water distribution is shaped not only by physical availability, this is what you were talking about, not only the technical part, but by who has the authority. So who has the sulta and influence? Who has the ta'athir? Who influences? Who has the influence to decide where water goes? Al-Makan. Section A, Section B, Section C will get water. The other sections, they will not get. Where water goes. Number two, who, man, who receives it. Then come, how much it costs. So if you can do these three things, you have the power to decide the distribution of water. Now, what are the key elements of power? Number one, political power. So political power, this authority held by governments and public institutions. Every country, they have a government. So the power the government is having is known as political power. Number two, economic power. This is influence based on financial resources and investment capacity. So it is all about the ability of the government to fund and to build dams, the pipelines, influence over markets and pricing, private sector participation, ila ghairi dhalik. That is the economic power. Then lastly is the social power. This is where the people are. You know, influence derived from social status, identity, and network. So sometimes class, high class, low class. So the high class, they have the power. Those who live in areas, you know, the rich people. But the low class, sometimes they're masakin. The gender, the male people, sometimes they can have access to water, but the female ethnicity, your ethnicity, lil asaf shadid, can decide if you get water or you don't get water. If your tribe is in government, so your area will get water. Your tribe is going to get water. If you did not vote for the government, lil asaf, sometimes they are going to marginalize. So we have marginalized areas in each and every country. The opposition, those one who don't support the government. So sometimes, then you have community leadership can also decide, the clans, the council of elders, and so on and so forth. Now, the forms of power. How many powers do we have? The forms of power. So we have around 3 types of power. Number one, the visible power. Visible is from the word the eye. You can see. If you can see something, it means it's visible. So visible power These are the formal and observable decision-making process. So, for example, in a country, you can see the laws. These are the legislation, the government policies, regulation and rules, official institution and authorities. So this is the most obvious form of power. So this is the most obvious, means it is a share that everybody in the country, they know, wow, this is the Ministry of Water, it has the power. This is the department that deals with water, it has the power. Maruf, yani. Then we have the hidden power. So the hidden, you cannot see it. It's invisible. So control over what issues are discussed and prioritized. So these are the agenda setting, exclusion of certain groups from decision making, behind the scenes influence, selective information sharing. So when you're talking of hidden power, there are some things that the government official, the private sector, they will do it under the table just to influence decision. There are some lobbying, some groups they lobby, especially the private sector. They lobby, they go to the government, they go and meet the president secretly. They tell the president, please, if you supply water to our area, we are going to give you this money. So there are a lot of bad things sometimes happening. So this hidden power influences a lot the water allocation. So you find some areas they have water. Why? You even don't know why. So you cannot know who influenced it. So it is hidden. Then we have the invisible. Sometimes hidden is also part of invisible. Okay, we have invisible, deeply embedded beliefs and social forms that shape behavior and perception. So this invisible power, this is what, for example, the cultural belief and entitlement. So there are some tribes in the country, they think they are special than the other tribes. So there are many in the country. So they think they have the right, they have the power, as opposed to the other tribes. There are some clans. They think that our clan, we are better than the other clan. We are the majority. So nobody can tell us anything. So this also, we have the social hierarchies, the class, the caste, the gender roles, internalized ila ghayri dhalik. Now, this is the example of what? The examples of this power. So number one, we have a city. This can be any city or any town. So a city prioritizes water supply to industries over informal settlements. So this is a city that decide we are going to focus with the industry. We are not going to focus with the informal settlements. So this reflects how economic and social power outweighs social need. So if the city is focusing with industries, it basically means it does not care about the needs, the social needs of the people. So for example, the economic power, because the industries generate revenue, jobs and taxes, the government is going to give this area high priority. Why? Because they focus with the areas they are going to get money. The masakin, they cannot give the government the money. Political power. Government may favor sectors that boost economic growth. Sometimes the government can decide you are going to put this money in agriculture, we are not going to put it in the industry. They can decide, the government. Hidden power. Informal settlements may not be represented in planning processes. Informal settlements, sometimes when it comes to planning, the stakeholder participation, there are some groups, the masakin, they are not involved in the planning. They are not asked any question. Then the invisible power believe that industries are more important than marginalized community. So this is just an example of how we can apply the powers. Now, the key principles related to the power, the key principles of power in water distribution. Number one, we have to know that power shapes access. Those with more influence tend to receive better and more reliable water services. The more power, the more likelihood that you are going to get clean and reliable water supply. Number two, inequality is reproduced. So the existing social and economic inequalities are often reinforced through water system. So the water systems in a country can sometimes lead to inequality. The systems we are having themselves, the policies we are having, sometimes can lead to inequality, where some areas have, some areas don't have. Number two, decision making is not neutral. So policies reflect interests, not just technical efficiency. So policies, if you are in any country, there are many groups, the farmers, schools, the hospitals. All of these people, they have their interests, investors in the private sector. So decision making is not neutral. That, we expect everybody, we expect the government to make a neutral decision, 50-50. No, it does not happen in reality. Like it's going to be normal. Everybody should get water. No. You find that there are a lot of interest, there are a lot of bribes, there is a lot of corruption that determines the supply of water. Marginalization is systemic. Exclusion is often built into institutions and processes. So the issue of some areas being marginalized is systemic. When you're talking about systemic, it is deep into our systems. And it is not only in water, in all the services in a country. So sometimes, for example, in some countries, if you want to get passport, you will go to apply. So your passport will take like 1 week before you get your passport. But there is somebody else who is Masaki. There is somebody else who is from a very good tribe, very good clan. They will go to apply for the passport today, and they will get their passport today. But you have to wait for 3 months. So it means that the marginalization is systemic. The system is actually promoting marginalization. Just because I am from this tribe, the system does not allow me. Just because I don't have money, so the marginalization is systemic. Then accountability is essential. So power must be checked to ensure fair distribution. That is why sometimes the minister who is responsible for water, sometimes the parliament will call the minister in parliament and they will be questioned about the decision that they made. Then inclusiveness improves outcomes. That is what you are saying. Al-musharaka. If there is any decision you are going to make, all the people, they have to be involved. They have to be asked about their needs. If we do that, you are not going to have any problem. And this is the core elements of good governance, where you involve people when you are making any decision. Now, the summary to this part is that water often flows toward power and wealth rather than need, because wealthy actors can pay more or invest more. The capitalists, the rich people, they have a lot of influence. Powerful groups can influence policies and decisions. The decisions that are being made in the parliament, there are some people who bribe the politicians. Hey, please pass this bill, pass this law, because this law is going to benefit some people, and they pay billions, millions of money. Marginalized groups often lack voice and representation. Marginalized, the masakin, they don't have anybody to represent them. Nobody is going to listen to them. So this is also something that affects governance. Therefore, achieving fair water distribution requires addressing power imbalances, strengthening inclusive government, and ensuring equity-focused policies, not just technical solutions. Now, the next area of our lesson is about inequality. We've been talking about inequality in water supply, but what do we mean by inequality? This word, we've mentioned it many times. So inequality in water access refers to unequal availability, quality, affordability, and reliability. 4 things. So availability, if some people are getting, some people are not getting, hunaka al-mushkila. Quality, al-jawda, some people are getting clean water, some people are not getting clean water. There is inequality. Affordability, some people can pay, some people cannot pay. There is, adala is not there. Reliability, some areas they get water 7 days in a week, some areas they only get water 1 day in a week. So when we are talking about inequality, these 4 things are very important. So not everyone has equal access to safe and sufficient water. These inequalities are shaped by income levels. Some people, they earn some good amount of money, some people, they don't earn. So this income affects the availability, the quality, affordability, and reliability. Number 2, location. Sometimes there are some people, they are near the rivers, the oceans, of course, the water, they'll get the water. And those people who are far from the water sources, they'll be having some problems. Then the social status, the politicians, the rich people, they'll always get water. So after the break, we will continue. I will send another link after the break because we only have 30 seconds remaining. But before the break, we only have 30 seconds remaining. So these are the key elements I was talking to. So if we want to know if there is inequality or there is equality, we need to answer these questions. If the answer is yes, mashallah, fabi'a wa ni'ma. If the answer is no, it means there is inequality. Number 1, is water physically accessible in your area?